Hello and welcome into the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, and joining me from beautiful Austin, Texas is senior writer Mike Craven. Craven, it was Judgment Week in Texas college football, and I think we found out a lot about a bunch of teams. I want to start off with Texas Tech because they looked so good through the first 3 weeks of the season, but they really hadn't faced a big test yet. And they had their first signature win of the season with a 34-10 victory over number 16 Utah. The Red Raiders are now 4-0 for the first time since 2013. And Craven, there's two big storylines here. One is Will Hammond coming off the bench and lighting up the scoreboard in the fourth quarter. But the other is Texas Tech hitting on all their defensive transfers and them out-Utahing Utah. You liken them to a playground bully, Utah was, and then Texas Tech, out-Utah Utah. Let's go with the defensive side of the ball first.
Yeah, I think when you enter the transfer portal and you bring players in, you can be sure but not 100%. You have to see them in moments like this before you know if your return on your investment's there. We saw Florida State last year as an example of maybe not hitting on what you think or the talent doesn't translate or whatever the case may be. Utah was a great test for this defensive line for Texas Tech, and they passed it with flying colors. If you close your eyes and imagine a team in red in Salt Lake City kind of physically dominating another one until they tap out and then you run away with it at the end, typically it's Utah that's doing that to the team. Texas Tech won in a way that it hasn't been capable of winning in my memory of Texas Tech, probably since Spike Dykes' days. They weren't able to win football games this way, much less on the road against a Utah team that is physical. So just overly impressed with Shield Wood and that defense. Those defensive linemen were really, really good. The secondary's flying around. Those linebackers are homegrown, and they were really, really good, with the strips and just punching the balls out. So just overly impressed with Texas Tech. That was a big win. I would say the biggest win of any team in the state so far, even maybe more so than A&M Notre Dame.
Yeah, especially because of how they won that game where, look, the Texas Tech offensive line, I have it here, has allowed 3 sacks all season. Then they held the 7th-ranked rushing offense, Utah, that is, to 101 yards rushing and rushed the ball themselves for almost 5 yards a carry. I love the analogy you gave in your 10 thoughts up on TexasFootball.com now about Utah under Kyle Whittingham is that playground bully, right? They've had armpit hair since 2nd grade. Their voice is way deeper than everyone else. And then Tech came in after the summer break and basically gave them a swirly in front of the whole country.
Yeah, got a trainer over the summer. Really had a parent really put resources in, a Karate Kid story, is really what this is. But yeah, I think if you're a Texas Tech fan, you've had these good feelings and you thought, man, our team could be really good. We invested so much through the portal. We signed this great class. We got 2 hotshot new coordinators. We can go win the conference. But historically, that hasn't been true. And so until you see it, I imagine it's hard to truly believe. Well, you've seen it now, and that's got to be great. The other side of this is the final score, I think, makes you feel like it was 10-3 going into the fourth quarter, right? Mm-hmm. And they didn't score in the third quarter. And so this one was frustrating for 3 quarters if you're a Tech fan because it felt like they should have pulled away. But penalties and just kind of some dumb mistakes.
5 combined turnovers.
Yeah, the turnovers, the offsides. They had one scenario where it's 10-3, they're in field goal range. You're able to kick a field goal with your backup quarterback in there. It's 13-3. You feel like in the way that that game is going, that's huge, right? It's like a Big Ten football game. That's going to be the difference. And then an offside penalty pushes them out of field goal range. They got to run a play that they probably wouldn't otherwise. It loses 2 or 3 yards, and now you got to punt, and it's still a 1-score game. And Utah can go down the field and go tie it. And so there's still some small margins that have to be addressed here. Maybe they see Utah again, but you got what you thought or you hoped you would with that money you spent, at least on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they forced 4 turnovers. All 4 defensive linemen are new. AJ Holmes from Houston was the second highest graded PFF guy. Jacob Rodriguez, you mentioned, the middle linebacker, was the first rated PFF guy. He was punching the ball out. That was one of the biggest offseason moves they had, was just keeping him in the fold. And then they allowed one explosive play, which was a 44-yard pass, I think. So all the credit to Sheil Wood, defensive coordinator, that Texas Tech defense. Now here's the other conversation. Quarterback. Because Baron Morton took a scary hit in the third quarter, had to leave the game. He was 12 of 19, 142 yards, 2 interceptions that were underthrown balls. I thought he played fine, honestly, aside from those 2 interceptions, but Will Hammond kind of took it to a different level against Utah. He comes in, he's 13 of 16 for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then he had like 61 rushing yards too. Super mobile. Tech has a bye week now to get Baron Morton healthy, but the Hammond hive is starting to buzz, Craven. Like, what do you think should happen here? Where does Tech go from here?
I think if a healthy Baron Morton gives you the best chance to win the Big 12.
Okay.
I still really believe that. Just his leadership, his experience. I think with how good you are around, maybe if you needed the quarterback to go be the difference maker, you pull the plug if you think Will Hammond, especially with his legs, could go do that. But with such a good defense, with a really good group of wide receivers, I think 2 really good running backs that had really good games. Jacoby Williams' long catch early in that game really set a tone. And so I think a Baron Morton type of quarterback can get you to where you want to go, and then you're able to hand the keys over to Will Hammond. But this experience has been crucial. He was able to play last year at TCU, and he had that fumble late in the game that cost the Red Raiders. Now you come in and have a different kind of story arc where you run away with the game. You play great. You're like PFF's top-rated quarterback in the country. And so I think you feel like you've solidified yourself to go be the starter in the future. But I still think if he's healthy, Baron Morton is the guy at quarterback.
I don't disagree with you here, but I do have a question, because Utah is a Big 12 championship favorite. Like, that is the cream of the crop of the Big 12, I think. And in a 1/2 sample size between Baron Morton and Will Hammond, like, the offense looked better with Hammond. Are you saying you feel better about Baron Morton because Will Hammond makes a mistake, like a redshirt freshman mistake like he did last year against TCU?
I don't think it's fair to judge what the quarterback does that was game planned on all week against the guy who just comes in and can be a wild card in a different type of quarterback. And now all of a sudden Utah is on their heels. And I do think in that game, the way it was going, Hammond's ability to move around and be mobile was huge. Because all of a sudden now Utah has to play a little bit different defensively. You have to leave a linebacker in there. Like, maybe you got to play a little bit more zone. Like, all of a sudden that offense opened up a little bit. I think that was because of Hammond's entrance into the game. But we've seen this time and time again with young quarterbacks. You enter into a game, you play. Marcel Reed last year is the perfect example.
Marcel Reed, Connor Wegman situation where the teams would game plan for the other one, and then Marcel would go off against LSU.
The more and more tape you get from Will Hammond, do you get the fourth quarter against Utah guy, or do you start seeing a quarterback that has some limitations, which I'm sure he has because he's a young guy who's still figuring it out? And so I just think with Morton, maybe the highs aren't as high. Maybe Will Hammond is a better player in 3 or 4 years. We look back and go like, holy cow, how did Will Hammond stay on the bench? Look how good he is. But I think right now, just with what Morton gives you, like, he's just the known. I think the floor is higher with him. And if you're Tech, you'll take that risk because you feel like the team around you allows you to have a quarterback who's more of the game manager, who doesn't need to go be kind of the guy.
How bad do you think it hurts for Utah knowing that you are in the Mormon capital of the world and you let this quarterback from Texas Tech, who is Mormon, get away from you? And he came and cooked you on Saturday.
He did. He came and cooked him. Are we sure Utah is the cream of the crop of the Big 12? I've been quiet about this for weeks because there's people in this industry that I respect a lot, who I think are very smart football people, who Utah beat UCLA, and all of a sudden the Utes were supposed to be a top 10 football team, and the real watchers, the real ball knowers would have the Utes in the top 13. And I mean, New Mexico beat UCLA the same that Utah did. I'm not sure that quarterback's that good.
Yes, I have questions about Dampier now after that game because he looked very limited. And I don't know how much of that was Texas Tech's defense is insane and how much of that was this quarterback might not be Big 12 caliber for the rest of the year.
I left that game believing two things to be true. Texas Tech is a really good football team, and Utah is not as good as I thought they were, specifically on offense. And I'm just not sure against the Big 12 teams that can score if Utah is going to. I don't think Utah is going to be in the Big 12 championship waiting on Tech for a rematch.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's just where I'm at. I think they're going to see better football teams.
Do you think Texas Tech is going to be in the Big 12 championship, though?
I do.
Game?
I do. They have two quarterbacks that can go win you football games. They have an easier schedule. Like, they don't have Iowa State. They don't have TCU.
Which is a travesty, by the way, that they don't have TCU. I would love to see TCU Tech this year go against it.
100%. They don't have Baylor, which has been a bugaboo for them. You know, they do go on the road to Arizona State, but that road trip to Kansas State doesn't feel as tough anymore. My questions were, in a portal that's not as talented as maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, did Tech really get that bang for their buck in the port? And it seems so. I mean, even the corner, like Pollock looks like an incredible player out there on the edge. Like, they just seem like they've hit at every single position. Did a really good job. James Blanchard in that group, I think, deserves a lot of credit. They had a plan. They invested into that plan. And after their first big test, like they passed it, and they have more to go, obviously.
And this is where Joey McGuire deserves credit too, because I saw him after the game talking about how a lot is made about this roster being, bought, and we have talked about it too, Craven, obviously. But Joey McGuire has done a good job of taking a lot of new guys and getting them tight as a core, and instilling that culture. And I think that is where his high school coaching background came into play here. Because this wasn't the original vision of the Joey McGuire era. They were going to be very portal heavy in year 4 for him. But I think it ended up working out so far this season in that he's used his high school football culture building skills to get this group of new guys to gel together really quickly.
I think that's Joey's biggest strength as a football coach, is the culture building.
Yeah.
Is being the CEO. And so maybe he's the perfect type of coach for this new era type of team building. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that they've done it well so far. They could lose 2 out of their next 4 games, and now we're on them and say, like, oh, you can't build a team this way. Look at the mercenaries. Like, it can change very fast in college football. And maybe Utah is not as great as we thought. Maybe they are. But it was impressive. And that was the type of win that Texas Tech hasn't always been able to achieve. And they did it in a way that they most definitely typically cannot achieve.
Yeah, really impressive win. Going down the line in the Big 12 of impressive wins we also saw is TCU taking the final iron skillet, 35-24. And look, if you're going to be the side that says we're no longer doing this rivalry game, you better win the last one. And they did it, man. Like they off of TCU wide receiver Eric McAllister basically having an EA Sports Road to Glory type performance. 254 receiving yards was the second most in TCU history, and it should have been the most, but one of those catches he had was called incomplete. Averaged over 30 yards a catch, 3 touchdowns. He looked like Megatron against SMU's cornerbacks on Saturday.
Yeah, McAllister was one of the big play receivers in the country last year, but he was 3rd or 4th in the pecking order because of how deep the Horned Frogs were at wide receiver. And the question all offseason, you talked to Hoover, you talked to Dykes or Kendall Briles, they were so high on McAllister. You were expecting a breakout type season, like he's going to go win some awards or go be all Big 12. But it's like, okay, doing it as the 3rd or 4th guy is different than doing it as wide receiver 1. And through the first couple of games, it felt like Jordan Dwyer was the go-to wide receiver. And maybe McAllister was struggling to step up into that number one role, or to have the extra coverage, and then bang, just one of the all-time performances at wide receiver at a school that has had some pretty big time wide receivers come through there and some really good passing offenses. If you're TCU, I think all the quiet confidence that you felt throughout the offseason is coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Like Tech got all the headlines. Baylor got more headlines in the Big 12 if we're talking in the state of Texas. And every time you talk to somebody at TCU, they're like, I think we're pretty good. Like, what aren't we seeing? Vegas only has us at 6.5. Like, none of y'all are ever talking about us. Y'all think Baylor and Tech are much better football teams than us. This is a really good roster, and so far so good. They've been impressive. Josh Hoover's been awesome, and that defense looks good.
Yeah, Josh Hoover is now the 5th TCU quarterback to eclipse 7,000 career passing yards. That's courtesy of Jamie Plunkett, who had the other 4 guys listed too. Craven, could you guess who the other 4 are? The other 4 QBs at TCU history to eclipse 7,000 passing yards.
No. Dalton.
Yes.
Did Duggan?
Duggan did, yes. There's another one you should get, and then there's one that there's no way you get.
Is it Boykin?
Boykin, yep. And then if you got this last one, I'll quit the podcast. And I'll never.
I have no.
Max Nake.
Okay.
I don't even know when he played, but that is an insane company group to be in for Josh Hoover.
Proud of myself for getting 3 of those.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the preview podcast last week with Jamie and Billy Embody. I know that was a more important individual game for SMU in 2025 because the Mustangs had already lost. I think it has implications for the ACC versus the Big 12. And if multiple teams are going to get into the playoff, not that specific game deciding that, but I think it's another data point that lends itself towards the Big 12 this year. But for the program, it just felt really big for the Frogs. Like one of those, you can discard that shadow and not look back. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to answer the questions about it. Like you won and you can kind of move on. I think that's good for TCU.
And they won 5 of the last 6 too. So, and Sonny Dykes even dropped that. Like for people.
Well, Sonny's won 5.
Oh, never mind. Sorry. Yes,
yeah,
Sonny has won 5 of the last 6 because he was at SMU and TCU.
Right,
okay,
right,
good catch.
Right. He is that's what sucks about this. Right, is like Sonny's really good at throwing those shots.
He had so many barbs.
Right. The rivalry is really good for that, right? And like there's real vitriol there. It was, as I'm watching the game, it was like, man, why are we stopping this? This is a lot of fun.
And Sonny did have a comment this week where he said when he was at SMU, I think that no one really cared about this rivalry, if I'm correct in saying that. Yeah. And part of that is because SMU for a while was in the wilderness as a football program and was not competitive with TCU. But it is so sad because this should be like a Big 12 ACC every year intrastate rivalry type. It's just getting good, and now it's getting taken away.
Yeah, I think the rivalry that Sonny was canceling wasn't worth saving. Mm-hmm. The rivalry that Sonny and TCU ended up canceling is worth saving.
Yes, I agree.
For a long time, not only did SMU not care about the Iron Skillet, SMU didn't care about football.
Yeah.
And what stinks about it, and a lot of this is on SMU for not doing this earlier, for not getting back into the game earlier. But what stinks about it is like they're 3-3 against each other since 2019. Dykes is one of the reasons that this became a rivalry again. And then it's ending when it doesn't have to. I do hope it comes back. My money is that it does come back, but I hope it comes back sooner rather than later.
No one's happier that it's over than Sonny Dykes, because he had a quote after the game about how they're going to take the Iron Skillet and break it with a sledgehammer. And I don't think he was joking.
No, I don't really think he was joking either.
I thought SMU was going to win this game because I could just see a bedlam scenario where Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma on the way out the door. But then McAllister caught that basically the one where Josh Hoover threw the ball 50 yards up in the air as he was getting hit, and McAllister caught it like a fair catch in front of 4 SMU defenders. And I was like, this game's over. Like, if they're going to make that play, then it's done.
Yeah, SMU went on that 14-0 run in the second half to kind of take that 24-21 lead, with 10:30 left in the game, and you go like, maybe the Mustangs just have TCU's number here. TCU, maybe they're getting tight at home. They had the lead the whole time, and then Eric McAllister 70 yards the other way, like a minute later, and that's how you do it. You answer those runs. It's like a basketball game. Like the other team is eventually going to make that run, and they're going to exude a lot of effort and energy to get there. And when they finally get back and they take the lead and they excel for a second, and this happened at UTSA, Texas State a couple weeks ago, and then you just pop them for that big gain and that big touchdown, and just kind of like they tried so hard to where it's like a crab in a bucket, right? You're trying to get out, and then they pull you back down. Like that is exactly what happened to SMU, and you could just feel it after that. Like they couldn't score again. They had spent everything to get there, and TCU overcame it in 3 plays.
On the SMU side, they're now 2-2. The 2 wins are against an FCS team and then a first-year FBS team, and they are last in the ACC, allowing 334 passing yards a game. How much of this was Eric McAllister as a freak show, and how much of this was SMU's defense is bad?
Probably 50-50.
Okay. Because Eric McAllister looked like he was an NFL player out there playing against college guys. He did not look like he played the same sport.
And McAllister is really good. He's going to go play NFL football, talented player. SMU's defense does not have the dudes it used to, and defense is a dude-oriented unit.
Need more dudes.
You can scheme up some stuff offensively and hide the fact that you have some smaller offensive linemen or not the fastest wide receivers, or maybe you're deficient at running back, or your quarterback doesn't have a cannon arm. Like you get to dictate the terms. And so you can run plays and run an offense that gets around some of that, relatively. On defense, you're at the mercy of what the other offense does, and you just have to have guys that can figure it out. And they don't have Elijah Roberts. And they don't have Jonathan Jefferson. They don't have Ahmad Wilson and those guys, or Ahmad Walker and Kobe Wilson and those guys up front. Like the front 6, front 7 specifically, you just watch it and you go like, they were so much better last year, just from a pure talent standpoint. And those players who are being asked, like the Isaiah Smiths of the world and the Cam Robertsons of the world, they were your depth last year. And now they're asked to be the stars, and they just haven't stepped up into that echelon. And so they just don't have the game breakers, the game player. They don't have the Brashard Smith on offense, even though TJ Harden's been a good running back. They just don't have the game breaker on offense that can go change the game like he did last year in this game. And they don't have the front 7 that can go cause all those mistakes and the havoc that Josh Hoover had last year. And that's the difference between last year and this year, is SMU just not having those 4 or 5 guys that can go change the game.
So do you think this is a team that can get to the ACC championship game still, or are you saying, no, they're a 7-win team right now?
Well, I took the under when we did the win totals.
So you never thought they were going to the ACC championship game?
I have always thought that this is a transition year for SMU, that they spent a lot of money making sure they had a roster that could win the AAC on the way out and could compete in the ACC on the way in. It was very important for them to put their best foot forward right away and to be taken seriously right away, and not to be the Cincinnatis or the UCFs where it's kind of been a slow burn. They wanted to get there and arrive and be taken seriously. But they don't want to be Florida State. They don't want to be up 1 year, down 1 year, up 1 year. They don't want to have to do it that way. And they're transitioning to more of a high school recruiting model where you can only spend your money you can't create more money, And so if you're going to take 50% of what you used to use on portal and now use it on the high school recruiting side to get the Jalen Coopers of the world, well, that's a defensive tackle from Georgia that you can't go get. That's an Elijah Roberts you can't go get. And so you look at those young guys and they're excited about the Jalen Coopers. They think that class that they signed last year was great, and they think the one that they're about to sign is even better, but they're not going to hit the ground running the same way as an Elijah Roberts or the Brashard Smiths are going to do. And that's going to make a year or two where you're just not quite as experienced. Maybe you're as talented, but that talent isn't experienced, and you're not going to win these type of games. You're going to blow a 14-point lead against Baylor. You're going to struggle with penalties on the road. They just don't have the 21, 22-year-old finished products that they had last year.
I think the one saving grace for them right now is a preseason schedule. When we looked at it, we thought, okay, you got to face Clemson this year now in the regular season. That doesn't seem so scary anymore. But I think Miami and probably Louisville right now are gonna beat this team. So
yeah, Syracuse is a team that
Syracuse got them too.
That just had a big game. So I don't think they're going to make a bowl. You know, they're still a solid football team. They lost in overtime to Baylor. They had a lead in the second half on the road against TCU. Like, this isn't a bad football team. I just think that TCU had two or three more dudes than they did, and that's the difference in these type of football games. And last year they were on the right side of a bunch of coin flips, and it serves to reason that this year they're going to land on the other side of it, and that can be the difference between 11-1 and 7-5.
Yep. Sometimes it's about the players, not the plays. Yeah, and just need more players sometimes. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Let's go to Baylor, back to the Big 12, a former team that SMU played. Baylor is now 2-2 after falling 27-24 on a last-second field goal to Arizona State. Craven, you were in the building. It feels like Baylor they always have a chance for a signature win at home and that they're not getting. Am I off base saying that?
No, not at all. They are 4-12 against the Power Four at home since the start of 2022. They're 11-12 at home in Big 12 under Dave Aranda.
Not going to cut it right now.
And so, they just haven't had those big signature wins. Their biggest wins of the last few years have been road games. You know, like the 2 wins at Texas Tech over McGuire have been satisfying wins. Those have been on the road. And so I think Saturday night was an opportunity to capture some momentum in that city and to get the fan base back on board. There were some arguments going into the game between the fan base about how much support they need to be giving this team and how much support that they're not getting. I was pretty surprised at the lack of attendance. Like, there was a lot of available seats at McLean Stadium, and that's after beating Baylor, winning in the last 8 of their 9 regular season games, and playing against the defending Big 12 champion. Like that.
If you can't get up for that, man, then you're not getting up for much.
Right. So if the fan base isn't excited for that, like if you can't get a sold out crowd for that at a stadium that holds 45,000, like what's going on? Like where are the vibes for this program? And so it just has felt like one step forward, 2 steps back a lot of times over the last few years. And what's hard about it, and Aranda spoke on it after the game, the sign of a good football team is complementary football. And I know that that's such a cliche thing to talk about, but that's what it is. In Baylor, good teams complement each other, right? Bad teams figure out a way to lose. And Baylor is the type of program right now that their offense plays great and then the defense stinks. And then they finally get a good performance from the defense. Baylor turned the ball over 3 times at midfield or in their own territory. Arizona State only got 9 points out of it. And the offense,
win for the defense.
Right. And the offense couldn't figure it out. Like all of a sudden, and so just something is always going wrong. And to me, that can't be on anything else other than the coaching.
Yeah. I thought the defense was great. Like you talked about, the turnover on downs, they forced in the red zone. They also had 2 almost interceptions in the red zone that would have been the difference in the game. So even with how cataclysmic we're being about Baylor right now, they were close to winning this game. And I think that's part of why it's so frustrating, because it's like, this is a fun team still to watch. Like their offense, they didn't have the best night, but they're still slinging the ball around the yard, and Bryson Washington's a grown man back there. And that's why I don't understand why the stadium's not packed out. I think that speaks to something at the core of this program, that something is off.
Well, it wasn't packed because they've only won 4 of their last 16 games against Power 4 teams at home.
Yeah.
It eventually becomes okay, well, show me and then I'll show up. Maybe that's not how it should be. And I think that hurts the diehard fans. Like they pull their hair out for that because that's not their type of fandom. but 20,000 people that are at each game are the hardcore crazy fans. The other ones are just there to have a good time and see an event. And I think Baylor football has lost a lot of those. I mean, obviously, given the stat I just said, and the fan base is in a wait and see mode. And I don't think the winning 6 games to end last year completely had everybody buying back in. And if they were, they jumped back out after that Auburn loss. It was here we go again. The SMU doesn't move the needle, I don't think, for that fan base, because they kind of still see SMU as the SMU of yesteryear. And so if you're Baylor, you had a real opportunity. If you're Aranda, you had a real opportunity to go win this game, improve your Big 12 contender, and then maybe the schedule opens up a little bit for you. You got Oklahoma State, you got a struggling Kansas State team. Like, it was right there in front of you. And like so many times since 2021, they figured out a new way to lose the football game. They didn't even lose it in the 45-42. Sam Leavitt just had a shootout and they had the ball last, and they just lost one of those classic Big 12 games. We knew the defense was bad. Like, no, they got a good performance from the defense at home, and all of a sudden it was Sawyer Robertson in the past game that was inconsistent. And so that's inexcusable. Like, you're not going to get 8 of those performances from this defense in Big 12. You got one against Arizona, like, and you squandered it. Like, that's got it. Like, that hurts. Like, that's not the way you go reach expectations.
I know we dog on conference realignment a lot, but Arizona State fits so nice in the Big 12.
That's true. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the Big 12 and the SEC have done the best in terms of like adding programs that fit.
They're very similar programs, both in terms of how good the teams are and the styles of play.
Yeah, the region of it, just kind of the feel of the fans. Like I think the Utahs and the Arizona States of the world fit pretty well within the conference. Colorado, and obviously an old Big 12 teams. The SEC still all connect. The ones that are weird are like Stanford in the ACC and UCLA in the Big 10. But Arizona State, great fan base. Like, there was a lot of people there. Like, the Sun Devils showed up. Like, they had a solid contingent there in McLean Stadium. And now they go play TCU Friday night this week.
That's going to be awesome.
Big game for both teams.
And I know it wasn't like a Sam Leavitt masterclass, but I still think he might be the most fun quarterback in college football. Like, the way he runs around in the backfield. I know John Mateer at Oklahoma gets a lot of Johnny Manziel comp. I think Sam Leavitt's the most Johnny Manziel coded football player in college football right now.
I would agree. He's a blast to watch.
Also, like, what the hell was he doing on that 4th down where they got stuffed in the red zone and he came into the pile like 10 seconds after the play was called dead to try to push it forward? You know what I'm talking about?
Ultimate competitor.
I was like, dude, this guy's insane. I love it.
I just think about this from the Baylor standpoint. Your defense plays well and keeps 3 turnovers to 9 points, and it's Josh Cameron that fumbles twice for you.
Yeah, program guy.
Right.
Guy you really count on.
Right. Like, it's just one of those, like, it doesn't even seem possible, Like, Josh Cameron's not going to fumble the ball twice. He probably hasn't had 2 fumbles in his college career.
No, he hasn't.
And then he has them on a night where the defense plays well. Like, that's just kind of the Aranda experience over these last 3 or 4 years. They can't stay out of their own way.
And then they were trying to go to Josh Cameron on that Sawyer Robertson interception. So I don't know if that was a miscommunication or what was going on there too.
Yep.
But yeah, just a golden opportunity squandered for Baylor and the Bears. You know who also had a golden opportunity and took advantage of it? North Texas, winning their 2nd overtime game of the year, 45-38 over Army. The Mean Green are now 4-0 for the first time since 2018. And if they beat South Alabama next week, not to look too far ahead, they could be 5-0 for the first time since 1977. I mean, what is going on in Denton, America right now?
Just incredible scenes. They had this one. They were giving it away. They had it. What struck me about it is North Texas has been trying to catch this type of program since Eric Morris got there. We've talked about it plenty of times. I think Seth Luttrell raised the floor at North Texas. North Texas fans, seemingly rightfully, by year 3 here, they made the correct bet, thought the ceiling could be higher. But the first 2 years of the Morris era didn't prove that. They lost a lot of these type of football games to the Armies, to the Memphises, to the Tulanes, the Navies, the UTSAs. Like, they have a 1-score loss to each of the programs I just mentioned in the last 2 years. And a lot of those game scripts looked like this in reverse. The other team jumping out to a big lead because the North Texas defense stinks. The North Texas offense starting slow, but then catching up, hitting their rhythm, and then scoring 4 or 5 times in a row. But like we just talked about earlier with the SMU TCU thing, you spend all that energy and effort to get there. The other team has one more shot. They land that punch. North Texas loses the football game. Year 3, they're starting to win those.
Yes, I agree with you.
And
because this is the game
huge.
they would have lost the last 2 years.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because when you started out, like, they're up 21-0. I think they forced like 3 turnovers with 10 minutes left in the second quarter. You thought they were going to scoreboard them like Washington State. But then Army puts in Dwayne Coleman, the other QB. He's electric. They storm all the way back. And then even like North Texas was up by 10 with 3 minutes left and blew another lead. So they blew multiple leads in this game, had multiple chances to have a back-breaking loss, honestly, that could have changed the arc of their season. And the 2023 and 2024 teams, they would have lost this game. But that shows the growth of Eric Morse's tenure here. And instead of what could have been a back-breaking loss, it is a signature win.
The analogy for me, I keep landing on the baseball pitcher one. Where like North Texas had one pitch the last 2 years, and it was outscore the opponent by throwing for 1,000,000 yards and scoring 60 points or whatever. This year, they can cause 3 turnovers that turn into points. They have a good quarterback that can throw it around the yard if you need them to. But all of a sudden, they got a run game, too. They ran the ball 42 times against Army compared to 36 rushes. McGill had 19 for 101. And then Hawkins has 4 touchdowns as a freshman.
4th player in UNT history to do that.
And so it just feels like North Texas can beat you in a multitude of ways. And I don't like to make football, like to reduce football to like dumb things and just point at one thing and be like, oh, see that. Like football is a pretty complicated sport in a lot of ways, but sometimes it's pretty simple. And we on the podcast talked if North Texas could just become average to above average at defense, they could win the American. And you look down after 4 games and North Texas ranks 48th in the country in scoring defense. And it's like the Mean Green are the 85 Chicago Bears. And they are just giant killers who now have like the second best odds to go to the college football playoff because they just needed to get into the top 50 scoring defense and everything else would take care of itself. And that's exactly what is happening in Denton. And now if they can beat South Alabama to start 5-0, they play South Florida on October 10th, Friday night in Denton, in a game that could be monstrous. And just an incredible turnaround for a team that hasn't been over 500 in like 8 years.
Yeah, I think it's so similar to Texas Tech on the defensive side where the unit is just completely different from last year to this year. And it's changed the trajectory of the team where Texas Tech and North Texas were kind of like 4th, 5th in the conference, really fun teams, but not a serious contender because of defensive woes. And now like they get a new defensive coordinator, they get some transfers in there, and it looks like a different sport, honestly, UNT's defense from this year to last year.
Last week on Friday, I had some time because my mother-in-law was in town watching Lucy. And so I was like, I'm going to go through, this is the way my brain works. I'm going to go through each of the teams and see who the top like 15 snap getters are on offense and defense. Just kind of see who's playing the most. Because sometimes you kind of miss things, where you're like, oh man, I didn't realize that so-and-so had played this many nickel snaps or what, whatever.
Yeah.
5 of the top 7 snap getters on the defensive side for Sam Houston or for North Texas or Sam Houston transfers. Like they've just hit the ground running in a way that you typically used to not be able to when you brought in a new coach. Like there was a transition period where you had to get the players up to speed. Well, they're already up to speed. Half the defense has already played in the defense. And so, yeah, I think North Texas is a contender. Maybe the best G5 team in the state. I think them and Texas State would have a banger of a football game. Wish we could see that one with like full strength, like not, bowl sit out stuff. But yeah, I think North Texas is a bona fide college football playoff contender. Like they really are.
Wow. And I agree with you for sure. It is credit to Skylar Cassidy too, of course, for scheming up this defense, but also I had concerns about bringing in half of Sam Houston's defense and wondering if there was going to be a level of play stepping up from Conference USA to the American that they weren't going to be able to reach. Dude, they're passing with flying colors right now. Davion Armstead is a dog. Like, he has been unbelievable. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the defense because look, they gave up 387 rushing yards, but they forced 3 turnovers.
Yeah, they scored 21 points basically.
Yes. So
yeah, Trey Fields has been awesome as well. Right, it's complementary football. It's like what Baylor is missing and like what North Texas has been missing. They're getting it now, and you go and you win games that you used to not.
All right, speaking of winning games that they used to not, the Rice Owls. Let's throw it back to Thursday Night Football because the Owls, after a 28-17 win over Charlotte, are 3-1 for the first time since 2001. And Scott Abel is the first-year head coach to start 3-1 since Bo Hagan in 1967. And do you hear that, Craven? Hooting's intensifying.
It's intensifying. That offense looks better and better each week, which makes sense. As you run it more and you get into a rhythm, it feels like Chase Jenkins and those guys have really helped. I think Charlotte's bad. And so some of this may be that Charlotte is a very bad football team. We'll know more about the Owls. But we never expected them to be contenders. Like, it's okay. Like, it's a good sign that you're beating other first-year head coaches in the same conference.
Yes.
With such a drastically new offense. Scott Abel, his stated goal all offseason was to get to 6 wins. They stole one early against Louisiana, although Louisiana doesn't look to be very good. I think they lost to Western Michigan this weekend. But they got one against Louisiana that on paper you wouldn't have given them. So now they're 3-1, and they still have FAU, UConn, UAB on the schedule. They don't play Memphis. They don't play Tulane in conference. And so the Owls could get to 6 wins, and that would be, one of the better coaching jobs in the state if they were able to pull it off.
Is it dumb for me to say that I don't really care about the context of the 3-1 record? I just care about the record. Like, I don't care that Charlotte might not be good and that Louisiana might not be good either, because I just think getting to 3-1 is what matters. And even if these teams aren't as good as we thought they were going to be, like, we had no idea what Rice was going to look like, and they look so competent out there.
Yeah, and if those teams had beaten Rice, they would be saying like, well, Rice isn't very good, so that those, and so you got to go win those football games, and they don't ask you how, they ask you how many. And if you're able right now, you're just trying to build momentum and buy-in, not only just from this current roster, but from recruits and from high school coaches and from admins and from donors and from season ticket holders. And with each of these wins, you're just bringing another body or two on board. And I think as a year one head coach, that's one of the more underrated things. We're going to talk about Sam Houston in a little bit. And I think the Bearcats, for reasons that are beyond Phil Longo, haven't been able to do that in year one. And it's causing a lot of doubt, right? Like, and it hasn't been good, but like Abel with the schedule and just being able to execute it and go win games that they have, I think there's an immediate sense of, we made the right hire. This is going the right direction. Let's get on the boat with them. And that's huge for a program that's been searching for that kind of buy-in. Also, underrated story is John Kay as a defensive coordinator has been sensational. We know about him in the high school ranks at North Shore, and he won like 9 state championships or something like that. That's an exaggeration, but not that much of an exaggeration. Like, he's a freaking ball coach, and him being the de facto defensive coordinator now, it's paying dividends for Scott Abel. Yeah, really good hire by Abel just to keep him in-house and elevate him to defensive coordinator. That unit's been really good. All right, do you want to talk Sam Houston, Texas, because we hinted at Sam Houston, or do you want to go UTSA and their thrilling win? Let's go Sam Houston, Texas, since that's 2 of our teams. All right, so Texas just gets a get-right game. 55-0 win over Sam Houston. I think Sam Houston had like 14 yards midway through the third quarter. It was about what you expected from Texas. And
Arch Manning's like 18 of 21 for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And at the same time, that's awesome and good for him. He needed that get right game. And also, I don't care. You know what I mean? I am not going to say a big congratulations until we get to Florida, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm happy this happened. He needed this.
Yeah. Spoken like a man who. Never mind. I was going to make a joke. I
well, now I want to hear it. We'll just cut it.
Okay. I was going to be like spoken like a man who's had the same like girl for a long time. You never had to have a slump buster in college. Right? Because Arch Manning needed one. Like he needed to see it. Like he needed to hit one into the fairway and just see that he can do it. And we said all week that Sam Houston offered the perfect opportunity to have a get right game, and he had it. And had he not had it, we'd be sitting here crushing him, and so everybody else would. And I agree that it doesn't matter too much. Like what he does at Florida, what he does against Oklahoma, at Georgia, A&M. Like there's going to be games where we judge Arch Manning and his story is kind of written in 2025. But you couldn't go into the bye week, and you couldn't go into SEC play with the performances we had seen. Like imagine what the feeling around Texas would be had they looked again like they did against UTEP and they had 2 weeks to sit in that before they went to Florida.
It would have gotten dicey.
Would have gotten dark.
I guess I don't mean I don't care. That sounds too harsh, but I was watching this game with a friend of mine who went to Texas, and he basically turned to all of us and said, like, the SEC should be scared right now with how we look. And I said, I understand why people don't like Texas fans sometimes. Like, that's what I meant of like, I'm not saying the SEC should be on notice right now. I would still be extremely nervous about the Oklahoma game and Florida game. The defense, I know Florida's not great right now on offense, but the defense is still great. But I am happy for Arch Manning that he saw one go down the fairway.
Yeah. It was something that they needed to see. I thought the 2 young running backs looked pretty good. Again, that could be a product of Sam Houston, without Wisner, without Baxter, just to see kind of Gibson and Clark have that kind of juice was solid. But we've talked about it. This Texas team is going to have to win with defense and hope the offense kind of grows into itself as the season goes on. And maybe in November, late October, it's a unit that can go win. But I think when they go to Florida, when they play Oklahoma, they're going to have to win 17-10, 20-13. Like that's just the type of football team this is going to have to be. That defense is excellent, like excellent.
Internet is also having intense debate right now on Arch Manning for flexing on a Sam Houston State player in the end zone. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I grew up listening to rap music. My favorite football team when I was a kid was the Hurricanes. That was my first love on the football field. My first basketball love was the Fab Five at Michigan. So I, as a 40-year-old man here with gray hair, would be betraying my inner youth if I ever got on anybody for talking some shit.
Yeah. I see both sides of it because there are some people that are saying, dude, why are you flexing on a team that's clearly outmatched? But I also see the side of Arch Manning just needs some confidence right now. He's taking it on the chin the first month of the season. He's probably got a lot of emotion right now in his head that he needed to let out. And also, I like a quarterback who's got some swagger to him, right? And talking to Texas fans around that game, part of the gripe with Arch Manning right now isn't even that he is not completing passes he should. It's that he just looks like a football robot out there, and they want to see some personality from him. So I think that was good, but I also understand, okay, man, it's Sam Houston. Let's calm down a bit. I'm sitting on the fence here. Not great podcasting.
I think it's fine, but it's also got to be fine when Oklahoma dunks on Arch Manning here, if it gets put back into his face, Texas fans have to be fine with it. Like Arch has to be fine with it. That's the deal. I am always fine with it if you can take it back. And Arch is going to play against defenses that can give it back to him more than Sam Houston, and he's opened himself up for some taunting. And you just have to roll with it if it happens. I
also think he needs to do the same thing to an Oklahoma player.
Yeah, 100%.
if you're going to do it versus Sam Houston, you also have to do it versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, just don't be mad when David Stone does it back to you.
Yeah, true. And then also watching Oklahoma sack Jackson Arnold 10 times yesterday. Like, they're going to have a lot of chances to do it to you.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. Right. It's coming.
On the Sam Houston side, I mean, what's left to say here? It's a tough situation for Phil Longo as a first-year coach.
The only thing I have left on Sam Houston is just, and I wrote about it in the 10 thoughts, is what is success? What does success look like? What would a happy Sam Houston fan look like at the end of this year? I think most fandom prevents you from entering a season with a lot of subjective reasoning. And if you're a Bearcat fan and you just won 10 games, you won a national championship a few years ago, I think it was hard to reckon with the idea of we're going to go 3-9 or worse. But now that you've seen it, I think you have to reckon with the fact that you're probably going to go 3-9 and worse. And so I think you have to try to build momentum. Like we saw it with UTEP in year one at Scotty Walden at the end of the season, where they won like 2 of their last 3. And in 2023, Sam Houston itself lost the first 8, and they won 3 of their last 4 or whatever to go into that offseason and build a little momentum. And so in a lot of ways, the season starts after this next bye week for the Bearcats, but this is such a hard task to walk into a program that's basically playing 12 away games. It's got like the 3rd most miles traveled of any team in the country this year, who got pillaged by the transfer portal in a way that wouldn't have happened if you got hired earlier. Like, it's not like you have a huge payroll. Like, it's just a tough job, and it was made tougher by the circumstances around it.
Yeah, I do want to get an update from the guy who replied to my 3-9 record prediction with a step-by-step diagram of how to shove it up my ass. I do want to check in with him and see how it's going right now.
Right.
Have him on the podcast, maybe. Honestly, if you're listening, man, like, let's come on the podcast and hash this out.
And, I think what's hard is separating what happens in year one from the tenure. And this doesn't have to be what the Phil Longo tenure is. I just think it's what 2025 is. And so at what point do you start coaching for 2026? I think the Bearcats
2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, I think it was always, let's get through this Texas game.
Yeah.
And then you got this bye week coming after that. And then conference play really gets going. I know they started with Western Kentucky, but it feels like now the season really starts for Sam Houston, and what you feel like going into the next offseason can be built upon over this next month or two.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get to a more thrilling game. UTSA beats Colorado State 17-16 after stopping a 2-point conversion and with the final ticks of the clock going down. You wrote about in your 10 thoughts, Craven. UTSA fans need to all send a big thank you to Diego Pavia for suing so JUCO players could get another year of eligibility, because where are they without Robert Henry Jr.?
I have to push back on something you said. Thrilling is not the word I would use to describe that.
Fair.
That was an ugly ass football game. Like, neither offense just should have been allowed on the field after that one. Like, walk home, eat the secondary lunch. It was bad. It was really bad. I'm perplexed by UTSA the last 2 seasons. Last year we went into the year going, well, the offense has to have a bunch of changes. They're probably not going to score a lot of points, but they have a lot of production coming back on the defensive side of the ball. There'll be a solid defensive unit until the offense catches up. And then it was the exact opposite. And then you look at this team this year and you think, well, the whole offense is back. Owen McCown's going to be an experienced starting quarterback. Those wide receivers are back. They're really good at tight end. The running game has overlived up to height. But what's up with the passing game? And all of a sudden it's the defense that's looking okay on the road against Colorado State that wins you that football game. So it would have gotten very toxic very fast in the UTSA fandom world had they gone and lost that football game, especially with how the offense played. There is some unhappy fans with kind of the coordinators and what's going on there. But yeah, not that it was better to win than to lose, obviously, but not a very inspiring performance by the Roadrunners.
My fantasy quarterback Owen McCown pick is not aging well.
That's true.
14 of 27 for 173 yards, 1 touchdown, which was basically a screen pass to Robert Henry Jr., and 2 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 36.5. I don't know what the scale is, but that doesn't seem good.
Right. 135 of the 173 passing yards were after the catch. So on 14 completions, he had, 38 yards in the air. It's like 2.5 yards through the air, average completion. Like, there's just no explosivity to this group unless they're getting in the run game. You can tell what the anticipated big plays are for UTSA when they're calling plays is Robert Henry just bursting one.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. That's their idea of a big play. They can't draw one up otherwise. It looks like an offense that doesn't have any answers. Like there's some tape on it now after last year. They're taking away what McCown wants to do first, and they don't have the ability to adjust after that. It just lacks a little creativity. And I think a fan base that watched Barry Looney, who's now at Illinois, and Will Stein, that's now at Oregon, got used to a certain type of offense that was scoring a bunch of points, and it is taking a step back.
What are defenses trying to stop Owen McCown from doing first that he wants to do that he cannot do right now?
I don't know if I'm a smart enough football person to know that. I think
I'm definitely not.
I think the popular defense right now is to play kind of a cover 2 shell, keep everything in front of you, and just see if you can make teams kind of work it down the field and make tighter throws and to be consistent. And it just doesn't feel like the big plays are there for the UTSA wide receivers. But I also don't know if this is all Owen McCown. I think the wide receivers have underachieved. Like the McEwens and Danny Amador yesterday had 4 catches for 0 yards.
That is really hard to do.
I mean, I'm looking at the wide receivers right now. Yesterday, they combined for 8 catches for 50 yards.
Yeah, that's not the UTSA that I knew when they had, Frank Harris and those 3 wide receivers, Akari Franklin and JT Clark. And
I mean, a running back led them in receiving. Tight ends accounted for 3 catches. So yeah, they don't have the playmakers that they've had. And that has made the lack of creativity on the offensive side of the ball stick out more because they don't have guys that can just go make the play.
Mm-hmm. A much needed win though, like you're talking about, similar to, not similar to Texas in the sense that Colorado State versus UTSA is a similar, a closer matchup between the two programs, but very similar if they didn't win that game or if they didn't look a certain way during that game, it would have gotten very bleak in the next week.
It would have been very bleak, and they're a team that's going into an idle week, right? So that's 2 weeks of you would have started 1-3 without a win against an FBS opponent. The only win would have been Incarnate Word. The noise would have gotten very loud there for UTSA fans. And when you come out of this break, when you get out of the idle week, you have Temple and Rice to start American play. So you can build a little bit of momentum in theory. That Owls games look tougher than maybe it did on paper. Because after that, I want to get this right in order. After that, you have North Texas, Tulane, South Florida.
That's a gauntlet.
And so what UTSA is and what their ceiling is going to be, last year they lost that game to Tulsa. They lost that game to Rice. Can they go beat teams that they're supposed to beat? They nearly almost didn't against Colorado State.
Okay, let's take it to Conference USA and the UTEP Miners, whose bowl hopes are dealt a crushing blow, I think, in a 31-25 loss to Louisiana Monroe. These are the games you'll want to see Scotty Walden winning in year 2.
Yeah, it's similar to the Baylor thing we talked about. Last week we talked about Houston and North Texas kind of seizing opportunities at home. The Cougars beat Colorado, North Texas blew out Washington State. And there was a buy-in from the fan base of that's what we were looking for. That's the growth we were talking about. Those are games that we used to not go win. Maybe this is a new time. Let's get excited for our football team. UTEP had that opportunity against Louisiana Monroe. Attendance wasn't great. I think it was like around 15,000. The pictures didn't look good. And El Paso's waiting for a winner. They want to get excited. They want to go to Miners football games. They just want to go see them win. I think it's very easy to turn it off because it's kind of the same old UTEP. And so, I think Scotty Walden's done everything right off the field. I think he's been a great kind of raw, get the momentum up. Recruiting has been really good, but he's searching for those wins that get the city and the fan base to really buy in and think that, oh, okay, they've turned a new leaf. This is a new type of Miners football team. They were down 31-7 at one time in the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, credit to them for scoring 24 to come back and make it close.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they threw for over 400 yards. Malachi Nelson has been a real bright spot for this football team.
400 yards passing by Malachi Nelson was the first time in 16 years. That's crazy.
But when I was watching the game on TV, my first thought was they still look really small. Like Louisiana Monroe looked like the bigger, more physical football team, and they played like it too. Like they outran them. Like, I mean, UTEP really struggled to run the football at all. And so I still think they're small. I still think body type wise, they look like an FCS team. And in these type of games, they just get bullied a little bit.
Yeah, if you want the story of this game, I think the El Paso Times summed it up in their gamer headline. Same old UTEP football. Miners lost early, rally too late against Louisiana Monroe. So that just goes what you're saying. They're wanting to see evidence of a winner. El Paso is. They're not seeing it yet. Not seeing it yet. Not saying this can't turn around, but that's a game that an opportunity that slipped away.
Yeah, and their next two are at home as well. They got La Tech and then an idle week and then Liberty. And then they're on the road for a little while. And so you gotta win these home games. You gotta find a way to kind of capture that momentum. The good programs do it.
Any big takeaways from Texas State beating Nicholls State 35-3?
No, did what they were supposed to do. Didn't hear about any kind of like catastrophic injury stuff coming out of that. So that's kind of where you want to be there. Another team that's going to go idle. We have a pretty light week next week. Not a lot of big games. About half the teams on a break. So Sun Belt play starts after that. And if you're the Bobcats, I think you got to feel like you're one of the favorites in the West. With Louisiana not looking as good, maybe you are the favorite in the West, and that's the next step for Texas. We talk about these steps, right? For UTEP, it's winning, kind of a big game. For North Texas, it was playing complimentary football. For Texas State, it was let's go get a bowl game. Well, now we've done that, and 7-5 isn't exciting anymore. Let's go compete for a Sun Belt championship on the way out to the Pac-12. Like you can really build momentum of doing that. So I think if you're Texas State, Brad Jackson had a pretty solid game, kind of get that Arizona State game behind you. It was a good place for that to be on the schedule, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After a, emotional Super Bowl type game against UTSA, not saying like it was the most important game of the year, but like a huge rivalry game, and then Arizona State. So 2 emotional roller coaster games. All right, let's just get back to basics versus Nicholls State. And it looks like they did that. So man, what a week. What a Saturday of college football it was. Found out so many things about so many teams. It was Judgment Week. It lived up to the hype. Craven, any closing thoughts as we get out of the door here?
4 teams from Texas ranked in the AP poll. Texas A&M in the top 10, Texas Tech at 12, TCU sneaks in there at 24. There has never been a season this century, that as far as I could look back, where 4 teams from the state of Texas finished ranked in the top 25 in the AP poll. Never has any state had 4 teams from the same state finish in the top 25 at the end of the AP poll. Texas is 26-9 against teams that aren't fellow like Texas FBS team. So just a really good year. It's just we thought it could be a big year for the state, and it's been a big year. One last stat here, because I looked this up. Texas makes up 9.5% of FBS. We have 13 of the 136 teams, so that's 9.5%. We have 5 of the 30 undefeated teams, so that's 16.66% of the undefeated team. So almost double the percentage of like population of the undefeated team. So just a really big year so far for the Lone Star State.
I wouldn't consider myself a math guy, but those numbers sound mighty good.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying when I'm saying it. They sound good.
The numbies are in and the numbies are good. All right. Well, that'll do it for our week 4 recap show. Judgment Week is over, and we will see y'all this upcoming Wednesday for a week 5 preview. So come join us Wednesday for that. And thanks so much for listening to this episode.